Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Our wonderful Alan Roberts, a little bit more time. He's so excited. He jumps in here. And, of course, he wrote a book as From Atom to Omega, An Anatomy of UFO Phenomena, which I just absolutely adore. And he's sitting here chomping at the bit to talk to us. So, good morning, Alan. You have to get closer to the mic and just make believe that's a new Martian that just arrived.
Good morning, Anita. How you doing?
I'm fine. Now you're going to have to move a little bit more. Okay. You can move it down.
No.
Okay, that's it. That's right. Okay, I don't want to miss a word you have to say. So have we learned, since the last time you came, have we learned anything that's going to excite us?
Well, some new information has come out. In fact, I'm working on another book. I don't know if I'm going to have enough information to make it worthwhile, but I'm
will.
Starting on it. So I hope it doesn't take me another 23 years. I did the first one.
Oh, no, you're a pro now. You can get that done. So what's that one going to be about? Same thing?
Well, I don't want to make it sound like the old one, the first one, but there's some new information that's come out. So it'd be along the same lines, but like I say, there's a lot of new information that's come out, and some of the information that was in the From Atom to Omega is relevant, which I'll be referring to in that book, assuming that I finish writing it. But there's a few things that.
Well, I'm going to stop you. Let's just tell everybody a little bit. If someone said to you, or you said that you wrote a book, and you tell them what it is, and they say, "Well, what was that?" How would you describe that?
What, my first book?
Yep.
Oh, there's a lot of different aspects to the UFO phenomenon. That's why I use the plural phenomena, because of all the different aspects that are involved with it, and that's what I explore pretty much in the first book. You've got abductions, you've got Area 51, you've got Men in Black, you've got so many different aspects to it, and I plus the biblical connection, which takes up a good portion of the book. That pretty much covers it. I went into great detail, especially in the biblical section, because there's so much information in there suggesting technology, and I break it down verse by verse and go right through it. And it's, I think, an interesting read. I really take no stand on anything because, like I said numerous times in the book, I'm presenting a lot of evidence that suggests this or suggests that, but evidence does not necessarily constitute proof. So, but there's a volume of evidence, albeit circumstantial, but when you put it all together, there's more than enough evidence that would convict somebody in a court of law. But when it comes to UFOs, people kind of roll their eyes a little bit but I've had a lot of positive feedback on this book from people that have read it. I've got some 5-star reviews on Amazon, and
I thought it was a great book. I mean, you really opened up my eyes. I mean, I actually am a believer in all that. I'm actually a lover of, if a UFO or something came down there and people were there, I'd go there. It sounds so right to me. Isn't that funny?
Well,
and I'm not a scientist.
No, you don't have to be a scientist. In fact, you don't have to have a PhD, to be able to think and reason, So, a lot of it is using your head, using common sense and logic, and just don't get carried away. Don't become a fanatic on the subject, because there are too many of those out there, and you see a lot of that on the internet, and most people. What they know about the subject, they've learned about through supermarket tabloids and some biased media coverage. But because the government has pretty much trained the media, for the most part, the mainstream media, to treat it as a joke, more or less. So, but other countries are a little bit different. I mean, in South America and Asia and a lot of places in Europe, they treat it very seriously, and they take the subject seriously. And you hear a lot more about it over there than you do here.
Why do you think that's true?
So, but that's life, I guess.
Why do you think that's true, Alan? Why do you think that the Europeans are more acceptable?
I have no idea. They're just more open to the subject. I mean, there are some areas where they clamp down on the publicity a lot, but for the most part, they're pretty open-minded, much more than we are.
Maybe because in South America we have Machu Picchu, and we have in Greece, we have all these famous the famous archaeology, and also maybe they just assume that it's just something else that's going to come along.
That's very possible. It's very, very possible. You never know. It's you just have to try to keep up with the current information that comes out on it. You learn who the reputable researchers and investigators are. Follow their material a lot, and you'll learn a lot. Just stay away from the tabloids.
Right, but there's interesting that the scientists, at least I told you that I know Ed Mitchell, the astronaut, and he believes in it. I mean, the people who really are scientific and people who know so much about those kinds of things, they're not surprised about this.
No, in fact, that's pretty much. Those are the kind of people I dealt with pretty much in from Atom to Omega. Police officers, airline pilots, Air Force pilots, astronauts, people that are really credible. That when they say they saw something, you can pretty much believe them. They're not prone to hallucinations or misidentifying the planet Venus or weather balloons or anything. They've been there, they've seen it all, and regardless of what the skeptics might say about them, they're very, very highly credible witnesses.
Well, we had skeptics talking about smoking also, many years ago that didn't do anything. A lot of skeptics about a lot of things, but we applaud you for doing this, because this has not really been your business. This isn't the way you made money during your life, but it's something. I would call it more than a hobby somehow. This is more than a hobby to you. I think it's a passion.
Well,
Wouldn't you say that?
Almost became an obsession, but I spent 23 years researching it, and it was a lot more involved than what I ever expected it to be. I had a sighting back in 1955 when I was 15 years old, and that kind of sparked my interest. But it was in 1988 before I really started to look into it. I just wanted to see if I could find out some information to answer the question of what the heck it was that I saw back in 1955. But once I got into it, I got so involved. I didn't realize, I was too naive to even. I thought it would take me a couple of weeks, I'd find enough information. Oh, that's what I saw, But that wasn't the case. It just led me down so many different roads, and archaeology and the biblical aspect, ancient civilizations, science, astronomy, a whole gamut of things. And I pretty much got an education myself by getting into it the way I did. But
well, let me. I know that you have some new ideas, and we're going to get to them. But let me tell everybody who you are. It's Alan Roberts. It goes as A.R. Roberts, and he wrote a wonderful book called From Atom to Omega, An Anatomy of UFO Phenomena. And you can actually purchase his book. If you go to his website, it's called FromAtomToOmega.com. And I thought it would be, tell me, so from Atom to Omega, the atom was the biblical part, and Omega is the scientific word. I want to ask you your opinion about something. Of course, I believe this, and you tell me what you think. You're not going to hurt my feelings. If we've read so much about, it could be novels, we've seen television. I believe that if someone can write something like this, then it's there already, even though it's preposterous, like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and the Star Wars and all that. People just can't come up with something in their mind if it isn't already there. They pull it in from their energy, something. So that's why I'm not surprised. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, that's the way it goes. You can read a lot of things about anything, but if you look into it yourself, you're going to probably get an education. You're going to learn a lot more than what other people have written about any particular subject. But when it comes to the subject of UFOs, and like I say, a lot of people kind of roll their eyes, but
I would never roll my eyes. I mean, I would just be jealous that I didn't see it.
I'm probably one of the most skeptical people you'll ever meet. But,
you are?
But I have an open mind. Now, that's one thing I learned. No matter how skeptical you may be about something, you have to keep an open mind. Anything is possible. I don't think there's anything that's impossible. Now, if you can think about it, it can be done. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but sooner or later, somebody will come up with a way to do it. So.
Well, have you read? Did you read before you got into this? Well, you were 15, you said, but any of the writers like Robert Heinlein and people who are really into that? Did you like that?
Yeah, Robert Heinlein. No, I haven't read any of his material.
You haven't?
No.
Stranger in a Strange Land. You must read that. That was my introduction to all of this. I was going to the University of Miami as an adult, and I was getting into English literature, and I was in an honors class, and they made us read a lot of things, and I'd never read anything like this. I read that Stranger in a Strange Land. It opened up my eyes. I then started reading everything I could on space and whatever. So I would suggest you do that. That's my big thing for you today.
I definitely will. Some interesting things have happened that some of the information that I'm going to include in this new book. Talk about some of the incidents where UFOs have more or less invaded military bases, missile sites. And from Atom to Omega, I mentioned a couple of this one here in 1964 in California, Vandenberg Air Force Base. A team was filming the test flight of an Atlas missile, and what they captured on film was this saucer-shaped object with a dome on top that flew into the frame, flew up to the missile, fired a beam at it, flew around the thing, fired another beam at it, flew around and fired maybe 4 or 5 beams at the thing, and then it just flew out of sight. The missile fell into the ocean way short of its target. And it was a dummy warhead. It wasn't an active missile, but that was back in 1964. 1967.
Wait, so stop a minute. So when that happens, you found it, but was it reported in the news?
Yeah, not very heavily, though. It was one of those things that they treat very lightly in the news, if it was mentioned at all. I'm not sure how much it came out through a lot of investigators that knew the person involved, the main person involved, and he was Lieutenant Robert Jacobs. He was in charge of the photo-optical instrumentation section that filmed all these test flights. And they were set up on Big Sur, and of course he was sworn to secrecy, told never to mention it again. And he 18 years he kept his mouth shut, and they finally decided to go public because he figured it's something sooner or later, that people should know. And all his credentials and records kind of disappeared. They wipe clean anybody that has involved in something like that. They erase your records. They could never prove he was in the Air Force. The only way he proved it was that his direct superior, Major Florence Mansman, the History or the Sci-Fi Channel is one that featured this incident. They contacted Major Mansman, who was his Jacob's superior, and he confirmed in writing everything that Jacob said. They're both retired. So then you got the Rendlesham Forest. Oh, well, I was going to say that before 1967, the Malmstrom Air Force Base, UFOs at 2 different missile sites at Malmstrom Air Force Base. UFO flew up to the complex. Each site was responsible for 10 ICBM missiles. All of a sudden, the missiles go offline, they're unlaunchable. Now, power was gone. They had to retool the missiles to get them back online. And it happened at two different missile sites at Malmstrom, and they were about maybe 20 miles apart. So things like that, there's weird. And in the Rendlesham Forest case, a lot of people have probably heard about that over in Suffolk, England, U.S. Air Base over there. Two separate nights, they had seen strange lights in the woods, and they went out to investigate. And on the second night, the deputy base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, took a team out into the woods to investigate this light. And they came into a clearing. This one object just came out of the I think it was the north or the south, I forget which one it was, hovered over their heads, flashed, it turned on like a laser-like beam of light right down at their feet, a thin pencil-like beam of light. It lasted for maybe 10 seconds and then went out, and the craft just flew back across the sky. But then they noticed there was other objects doing maneuvering in an angular fashion. They were shining lights down in the vicinity of the weapons storage area. And a few days later, when they investigated the area, when they checked out the site, they found that one of these beams had burned a hole right through the roof of a bunker where the nuclear missile or nuclear weapons were stored. If it had hit the weapons, it would have been a nuclear disaster, but it didn't. But the scariest thing happened over in a Russian missile site in the Ukraine, and that was in that was in October of 1982. This huge disc-shaped object hovered over the missile site. All of a sudden, the missiles went into launch mode. And those guys, if they were cats, they used up 8 of their 9 lives that were in there because they couldn't stop this thing. And sequence was going down where these missiles were ready to launch, and most of them, they were aimed at the United States. I mean, this could have started World War III. But it only lasted about 7 seconds. Now, UFO took off and everything went back to normal. I can imagine what those guys must have felt like, It's kind of like they're giving us a warning here, they go and shut down missiles at one base, you got to watch out for all this immense power that you're holding in your hands here. And over in the Ukraine there, you want to see what it's like to start World War III and really launch these things. They gave them for 7 seconds. They had the feeling, oh my God, what are we going to do? So,
Alan, I'd like to ask you a question. How do you get all this information if it's really being kept quiet?
Well, it's not that it's being kept quiet. I mean, it gets out there. Some of these people that are involved, they will talk to somebody sooner or later, and then you'll see it'll end up in a documentary, or usually ends up in many documentaries. And each one, sometimes they get the facts a little skewed, but the basic element of the story is there. And it's all verified by the people that were involved. And in fact, in the Russian incident, it was a very high military official that went to investigate, and since Glasnost, then things lightened up a bit over there. And when reporters from the United States had gone over to investigate some of the things that were happening in Russia, they talked to this gentleman, and he was very specific about what had happened. So,
in all your investigations, have there been any people, any actual aliens seen, or just the crafts, the spacecrafts?
Have people been seen?
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, in September of 1994, 62 children filed out of the Ariel School in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, for their morning break in the schoolyard. And they weren't out there too long when all of a sudden they noticed this silver disc-shaped object come down out of the sky and it landed at the far end of the schoolyard behind a couple of trees. Well, and they saw this short being about 4.5 feet tall come out of it. A typical description of these little gray beings that you hear about in the abduction end of the phenomena. And they started getting messages in their heads. Now, one little girl said the message, she got the impression, something is going to happen to the earth. Another little girl's impression was, gee, maybe the world is going to end. But then there was another little girl that said the message that she got, and this is quote unquote, says, they're warning us that we are, quote unquote, making harm on this world and that we should not get too technologed. Now, these kids were between 5 and 12 years old. I mean, for their ages, they were very well educated. And they were very articulate. They spoke well. The descriptions all matched. Sketches they drew matched. I mean, there was too much similarity to figure this was a hoax. And the incident was investigated by the late Cynthia Hine. She was a MUFON, Mutual UFO Network investigator over in Africa, and also by the late Dr. John Mack. He was a Harvard psychologist, and they found the children highly credible, and their stories were, there was no way that these kids would be lying. In fact, Cynthia Hine, she went to International UFO Conference in Sheffield, England, and she outlined the case of these people. And like she said, why would 62 children lie? And the headmaster of the school, Colin Mackey, he was very strict. He didn't stand for any kind of nonsense. And he told Dr. Mackey, these children would never lie to me. And he's thoroughly convinced that they had some kind of an experience. Of course, the teachers were all inside. They didn't witness any of this. So, but when you get that many kids and they all saying the same things, there's something to it. In fact, back starting in the 1970s, that's when these abductees, these aliens seem to be giving them dire warnings about something that's going to. They show them scenes on some kind of a projection screen of apocalyptic devastation and disasters, and they're telling them that these things are really going to happen. Now, when you go back 2,000 years, when on the island of Patmos, John, they think he may have been one of the apostles, but he wrote the book of Revelation, and you've got the same kinds of predictions in that book. And that makes you wonder, if these aliens are aware of something that's going to happen to this planet, they knew about it 2,000 years ago when they were giving all this information to John. Now today, they're telling these abductees, they're showing them scenes of disasters and things that they claim are going to happen. So they're warning us about something. And that's my impression. I can't prove any of this. This is, all speculation, but...
So can I talk about the abductees a minute?
Sure.
So they're picked up and they are whisked away. They come back. Do they live a normal life after that? I would think that trauma would be pretty...
Well, in most cases, the memory of what happened is buried into their subconscious mind. It sooner or later, it could be weeks, months, maybe years, memories will start to surface, vague memories. Then these people will start having nightmares. Well, not all of them, some of them will. And now many of them seem compelled to seek professional help. They go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, And to get to the root of the problem, they usually go through regressive hypnosis, and that's where all of this information comes out. Especially where it deals with women who have been inseminated with hybrid fetuses.
And have they? Are there children?
Yeah.
And people they do have babies that they did not really?
Well, not all of them. Some of them, yes. In fact, there's evidence of this in the Bible, too. But what happens in most cases, it seems like these aliens are, when they abduct men, that seems to be random. They pick them at random. The primary situation with men is the extraction of sperm. With women, they're usually taken during their fertile period when they're ovulating and they're collecting their eggs. And what seems to be happening is they're taking these women's eggs, they're taking the sperm samples that they extract from men, and they're doing some kind of genetic modification. And they will fertilize these women's eggs in vitro. The women are later taken and they're inseminated with these fertilized eggs. And this usually lasts for about 3 months, this womb gestation. Then they're taken again, and the fetus is removed from their wombs.
Whoa, we didn't talk about this before. This is pretty interesting.
And in many cases, and later abductions, these women get to meet these children that they carried in their wombs. So, at least they assume it's the same. Sometimes these babies are brought to them, and they're asked to breastfeed the infant, even though they may not be lactating. And it seems like they're trying to create a bonding or an interaction. They claim the aliens claim it's very important for the child for this bonding, but for as often as these things happen, these women don't often see these children on a daily basis. It could be weeks, months, or even years apart. But women that have actually carried these fetuses to full term and given birth, and there's a lot of evidence in that in the Bible, today, the memories of these people have pretty much been wiped clean. But
wait a minute. In order for you to be speaking about this, you have read about it. And where do you get that information, something like that?
Oh, a lot of it you'll see in the documentaries. People that have done some in-depth studies on this. I'm taking information from a lot of people and putting it all together. I mean, Dr. David Jacobs, he was a professor of history at Temple University, and he's gone into this in depth. He's written a couple of books, but very interesting. And one is called Secret Life, and he details a lot of the people that came to him for help through hypnosis and whatnot. And he's compiled a ton of information, more I think than anyone else probably ever has. And he looks at it in a very objective manner, and he's come to some conclusions. And in a lot of the cases, he spells them right out in his book. The hypnotic sessions, the questions that were asked, how they were answered, and there's so much similarity between these cases. It's not that one person says one thing, and a lot of it is in the little minor, insignificant details that these people mention. That who would think about? Oh, what color was this wastebasket in a corner or something like that?
And they all know the same thing.
All these little minor details, people describing the same things, and a lot of it. When these fetuses are removed from the wombs, they're put in some sort of a transparent container. I assume they're taken to an area where the gestation continues to full term.
Well, I just want everyone to know this is not a science fiction radio station. This is the Anita Finley's, as wonderful Richard says, Anita Radio. And I've met Alan Roberts, so I wanted him to come back again. He's been on the show a few times. We featured his book. He actually was Book of the Month a while back, and the book, of course, is from AtomToOmega.com. And I was fascinated by him and everything that he's been talking about. So a lot of you are sitting at home and you're saying, has Anita gone mad or crazy? No, I haven't. I love this kind of stuff, and I'm really, I guess, a believer in a lot of it. I don't know why they don't come take me. I want to be able to see some of this. But get on to his website, which is from AtomToOmega.com, and you'll be able to see, you'll be able to read a little bit from the book, and you'll also be able to hear him. Now, of course, we always put him on YouTube, so this will be something you'll be able to listen to. Ask your friends to listen to it so that you didn't think you got up in the morning and you were listening to something else. I know you've been a musician all your life, and I wonder if there's music in outer space. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, I'm sure there probably is somewhere out there. I don't think we're the only civilization that has cultural abilities. But
I wonder what the music sounds like. I don't know, but wasn't there something? I remember that. Let's see. I just it was a book that I did feature. It was a book of the month a few months ago, and it was called Man. Let's see, Mail. Have you been getting Boomer Times?
Yes.
Well, then it was featured. The Space. It was by Lerner. She's magnificent, and she wrote a book about her uncle. Well, actually, it's a novel, but it's not really a novel. It's really about her uncle, who was a ham radio person, but he got into a lot of things, and and he had special radio, and they came to get it away from her. It's very interesting. If you haven't read that book,
no.
I'm going to get it and let you, loan it to you. So you will love her writing. She's an award-winning writer, and that was interesting how she was inherited something she didn't know what she had because her uncle always used to take her up on the rooftop in New York, wherever it was, and he would tell her about things, but there's a lot more there. It seems like there are always people hiding behind, trying to keep it from coming out, and they attack you. This is pretty serious. They did a lot of bad things to her. Well, now, as I said, it's a novel, but it's because it's real,
Yeah. Now, have you ever heard of a person by the name of Gary McKinnon?
No? Help me.
Not too many people have.
Okay.
Now, he was a computer hacker. He's from the United Kingdom. He hacked into some NASA computers and government computers, not to do any damage. He was just looking for information on UFOs. And he managed to... he hacked into the, it was Building 8 of the Johnson Space Center, one of the computers there. He found information that we have a space fleet in orbit around the Earth. Now, this.
I love this.
Now,
a space.
This sounds like it's kind of stretching the imagination, but he was caught. And he was arrested in the United Kingdom, but he hadn't broken any rules over there, so they had to release him. United States wanted to extradite him and put him on trial over here for hacking into government computers, which is a federal crime. And for 10 years they tried, but the British wouldn't honor the extradition because McKinnon has Asperger's syndrome. And that is, I have a definition that's a neurobiological disorder characterized by autism-like abnormalities in social interactions. And according to the British, if he was incarcerated, he might commit suicide. But the thing is, he claims one of the files he hacked into. There were two files of edited and unedited photographs that were taken in space that NASA has. The unedited file shows these UFOs out there in space around the Earth. The edited files shows the same photos with these UFOs airbrushed out. He also said that he saw a photograph on that site of huge cigar-shaped object that was in orbit over the northern hemisphere. But what was really amazing about his claims, now there's no way to prove any of this, he hacked into a file that had names of non-terrestrial personnel. Now he said that the United States is using anti-gravity technology, and they're working in league with these aliens out there. Now, this non-terrestrial personnel were of different ranks. He couldn't tell if they were Army, Air Force, Navy, whatever. But he opened a roster that detailed some ship-to-ship and fleet-to-fleet transfers, which suggests there's a lot of ships involved. And according to what his estimation is, they've got like 8 cigar-shaped craft that is larger than 2 football fields put end to end, and they've got about 43 small scout ships. And the operation is called Solar Warden.
Solar Warden, and I'm going to have to be a warden for you because we've run out of time.
Oh, my gosh.
You even had more time this morning than you normally have, but it's always so interesting having you on the show, especially since I have such a great interest in this. But, Alan, you just keep doing what you're doing because you're going to really come up with some great things. We look forward to your next book, and don't stop. Make the book, and I'm sitting with this beautiful book, and I'm going to get you Eleanor Lerman's book, and I'll give it to you. So thank you. Appreciate your being here this morning.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.